where it's kind of like we're sitting here watching the world, continue to go on, but not for us.
10 months in quarantine. That is the reality for families who have loved ones at high risk of contracting COVID-19. The message one Central Indiana mother has for all of us tonight.
This isn't going to be the end of us. We're not going anywhere.
Rolling right along, how this barbecue team used the pandemic to improve its process and become an even better resource for their community, all while staying open.
From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5, streaming now.
And good evening to you here at 5 o'clock. Before we get to our other headlines tonight, we need to talk about your weather. Indianapolis crews are planning on salting the streets this evening, and Storm Team meteorologist Kyle Mounts can tell us what we need to know tonight. Kyle.
Well, Mark, the reason for that is because we've got temperatures that are falling, and we have some snow in parts of central Indiana. Our temperature now down to 37 in Indy. You can see that mild air getting squeezed off to the south and east. It's still 49 in Connersville, but just 34 in Lafayette, where you have had some of this light snow that's been moving through, reducing visibility. There you can kind of see the dividing line. It's mainly a light, chilly rain around Anderson through downtown, and then we get in toward Crawfordsville, Petersburg, and even around Kokomo. Some of those snow showers, and has added up to about 0.8 of an inch of snow there in the Lafayette area, but mainly on the grassy areas. Here's a look at TrueCast. As we get to 6 o'clock, you see that area of pink, some rain and snow mixing in here across the northwestern half of the state. That will slowly make its way toward the south and east here as we go through the next few hours. But again, any accumulation should be minimal. The roads should just stay wet for us, with those temperatures still hovering around freezing as we get to 10 o'clock, but more slick spots going into tomorrow morning, with those temperatures dropping back into the middle 20s.
Our first story tonight is one many Hoosier families can relate to. Those with loved ones who are at high risk of contracting COVID-19 have had to make major changes in order to keep them safe. WRTV's Nicole Griffin is sharing one family's journey 10 months into quarantine.
Mainly, I just miss going out and seeing friends and family.
Since March, 12-year-old Caden Singer and his family have been in quarantine.
We've been, really stuck in the house and so secluded with ourselves.
Where it's kind of like we're sitting here watching the world, continue to go on, but not for us.
Caden has a rare lung disease and a brain tumor. During the pandemic, he had emergency brain surgery for the second time after a year and a half of chemo.
So that makes him even more immune compromised. He's very, very high risk of catching COVID. I mean, if he was to catch it, it would be very, very bad.
For his safety, Caden's dad is the only one who works, so his mom can take care of him.
We have like a rigorous routine, like, shoes off on the front porch. He comes in, Lysol's keys, hats, the clothes go straight in the washing machine. He washes his hands, and he's basically pretty much moved into the basement.
In order to keep their spirits lifted, the family has started projects they can work on together, including a neighborhood candy box and a food pantry outside of their church.
It gives us something to do that we can do that's safe, and we also feel like we're, still doing our part.
This summer, they were also able to go on a boating trip safely distanced from others to enjoy a day outside of their house.
We're grateful for what we do have. We're grateful that we have each other. We're grateful that we have God, and we're grateful that we're staying healthy and Caden staying healthy.
The family agrees all of the sacrifices they are making are worth it just to keep Caden safe. But they have this message for the rest of the community. Wear a mask and do your part as well to help stop the spread of the virus.
I have friends that are fighting this right now. I have friends who have lost loved ones because of this. It's, I just feel like it's a small sacrifice to make.
What are you guys looking forward to when this all ends?
Just going to see people.
Yeah.
Friends, family.
Getting to, be out and experience what we haven't been able to in so long.
Working for you, Nicole Griffin, WRTV.
Getting back to friends and family. State officials are responding to your questions about when the COVID-19 vaccine might be available to the general public. As you know, the first round of vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna are being given to healthcare workers on the front lines of the pandemic. As for the rest of the population, officials say they are moving in a very intentional order right now and will continue to do so until they feel ready to offer the vaccine to more Hoosiers. They're determining who's next in line for the vaccine. There's some very specific criteria.
What is the risk for serious illness and death in that population? What is the risk of exposure to COVID-19? What is the risk of exposing others, especially vulnerable people? And how much vaccine do we have available? And what is the safety and efficacy of that particular vaccine for that population?
Officials expect to announce the next round of eligible vaccine recipients sometime within the next week. Meanwhile, Governor Eric Holcomb says that he will extend the state's executive order for another 3 weeks until the 24th, and under that order, crowd sizes are limited to 25 people in the highest risk red counties and 50 people in the next riskiest orange counties. Every Wednesday, we get an updated county metrics map like this one that shows which level each county is at. Red is level 3, the highest level with the high amount of cases and positivity rates. Last week, we had 24 counties in red. This week, it's almost doubled at 45 counties in red. A couple of counties, Sullivan and Fayette counties, have another strike against them, flagged for a significant amount of cases being attributed to congregate settings. We're also keeping a close eye on the new, more contagious strain of COVID-19, which has now been located here in the United States, in Colorado right now. That new strain was first found in the UK, but experts aren't sure exactly how it spreads because the man in Colorado who has it has not traveled and has not been in close contact with anyone else who has had the strain. It's said to be more contagious but not more severe, and it may very well have sickened Hoosiers already. The CDC said last week the strain could already be in the U.S. without detection, especially as each positive case must have special tests done to determine the strain, and those tests are not being done en masse yet. This year, local businesses already had to face a global pandemic, and one Hendricks County spot was forced to bounce back from a double disaster. But it's been on the roll nonetheless. Rusted Silo Southern Barbecue and Smokehouse in Liston has been able to continue serving up bold flavors this year, even after experiencing an electrical fire in October. Owner Robert Ecker is making sure every detail of the original restaurant is restored so it looks the same as it did before the fire. Meanwhile, to continue to practice their craft and do business, they moved the grills and smokers outside. And the key ingredient for this recipe? Something they already had in their back pocket.
We had the truck. We did not have it out operational except for special events and things that we've done over the last year. But it just provided the perfect opportunity for us to continue doing what we do on a somewhat smaller scale, to continue to serve the folks of Hendricks County and keep cooking. That's what we love to do.
Ecker says operating out of the food truck has allowed them to naturally social distance from customers, and online and carry-out options worked well with the nice summer weather as people picked up barbecue and headed out to a nearby lake.
The path that we took when the initial shutdown occurred really opened our eyes to some additional needs out here in our community. So we kind of expanded our availability options. We expanded our ordering options and ways that folks could get the food. And it really helped us see that even though we had the pandemic going on, that people still wanted to get out.
Ecker says they hope to open their brew house back up sometime in early 2021. You can hear more about how Rusted Silo Southern Barbecue and its rolling silo are doing in our special airing New Year's Day. Inside the COVID crisis, we're open. We've got more updates from some of the businesses we featured this year, as well as a look back at 2020. That's on Friday at 5 p.m. right here on WRTV. Forced to change but willing to adapt. Still ahead on WRTV, how one local farm is tooling with its process to continue to bring homegrown food to Indiana tables. Plus, 2020 has been a long and complicated year. We know that. Tonight, we're putting meaningful moments into context and tracking the timeline of our year. Right now on WRTV, The Rebound Indiana is our passion project diving into resources and ways Hoosiers are bouncing back from the pandemic. COVID-19 has forced many local producers to change the way they operate. With Indiana Grown, our Lauren Casey has a look at how a small Johnson County farm is reworking their business model this year while continuing to bring fresh local produce right to your dinner plate.
We're a small produce farm using organic practices.
David Sims wanted to be involved in the local food scene, and a relationship with the owners of Taxman Brewery grew into a business 6 years ago, Heirloom Acres, now located in Greenwood. A farm so small you may not even know they're here, less than a mile from Center Grove High School. And Sims' business model was entirely wholesale, providing fresh produce to popular spots like Taxman, Goose the Market, Sun King, King Dough, and more. That is until March 2020.
In March and in February, there's either things already in the ground being planned for your season as we would have otherwise, or at least seeds that are started.
But the budding farm-to-table restaurant scene hit hard by COVID-19 closures.
When everything started with COVID, we really kind of just stopped, paused, took a look at, our business model, just a lot of uncertainty.
And then what we started hearing from people, it was that I'm a farmer's market vendor. Will my farmer's market open?
Heather Tallman with Indiana Grown, which advocates for our state's ag businesses, work to help farms like Heirloom Acres survive by pivoting.
And so after several weeks of this and consulting with Purdue Extension and other organizations, we realized right now the best thing to tell people is how can they change their business model quickly.
We just decided, we're just going to move forward. So there was a lot of nervous moments of, are we doing the right thing?
Sims started bringing his products directly to consumers for the first time.
We started an online platform, and we did some pre-ordering, and we did delivery points at Sun King and at Taxman.
The farmers markets and organizations like Indy's Food Co-op providing opportunity for small farmers like Sims. The pandemic also brought heightened awareness amongst consumers.
And even though we knew that local food was all around us, that when you look out a window and you see corn, it might go to tortilla chips or tomatoes to salsa. Now people are very in tune with where their food's coming from.
Concerns about health. Who's touched your food? Will there be a shortage on your grocery store shelves? Well, local farms like Heirloom Acres can capitalize on the lure of eating local.
You just receive a product that's not handled as much, organically grown, nutrient-dense produce in particular carries a much higher value than what it ever has.
And that was Lauren Casey reporting. For more information about Heirloom Acres and where you can find their products, you can log on to WRTV.com/rebound.
Well, Mark, it has been a sloppy day out there as far as quite a bit of rain, and some of us have been dealing with a little snow. Right now reporting 37 and rain falling here in the Circle City. You've had some snow in Lafayette. Right now cloudy skies and 34. It's still close to 40 degrees though in Bloomington with some rain showers in the area, and so far that rain has added up to between about 1/4 and a half inch of wet weather, about 1/3 of an inch downtown and about 1/2 an inch of rain for you in Bloomington. We're not finished with that wet weather yet. You can still see this conveyor belt of rain that's coming in from the south and west, and there's the cold air catching up with it on the back side here across parts of central Indiana. So a few snowflakes for you around Rockville, Crawfordsville this evening, Kokomo. Don't be surprised if you see some pretty big size snowflakes out there too, as we're seeing that gradual transition with temperatures still hovering right around the freezing mark. So here's a look at TrueCast. As we get to 6 o'clock this evening, we'll continue to see that mix of rain and snow inch its way toward the south and east. Once we get to around 11 o'clock, shouldn't be a whole lot of precipitation left over, maybe around North Vernon into Seymour. A few of those snow showers still mixing in with a little bit of rain for us. But overnight tonight, the cold air continues to spill into the region, so temperatures down in the middle 20s. That standing water could have some slick spots, and that's one of the reasons that crews will be out there treating the roads. But just be mindful of that on your sidewalks and that kind of thing as you're heading out early tomorrow morning. Temperatures are going to be cooler tomorrow. We will only make it into the lower and middle 30s for that afternoon high, so seasonably chilly and still quite a bit of cloud cover. May see a few breaks of sunshine here and there with a high of 35 in Lafayette, 34 in Indy, and 37 in the Columbus area. Active again here as we get toward the end of the week. New Year's Day, 5 a.m. on Friday, and we'll see the rain returning, but it could be an area of some freezing rain. Could see some light ice accumulations here with this system as it continues to lift through, but then temperatures will warm, and we're talking about mainly rain with the rest of this system here as we go into our Friday afternoon. But something certainly to be mindful of. Good news is it's a holiday, so a lot of us not going to have to get out and do any traveling. Here's a look at temperatures. Middle 30s tomorrow, 50 on Friday, but that's going to be very late in the day, probably not until Friday night. then 42 on Saturday. The weather pattern quiets down a little bit, and temperatures really pretty respectable here as we head into the month of January. We're above average in the 40s. Another chance for some showers marked by Wednesday.
All right. Thank you, Kyle, for that. As the year comes to a close, we want to look back on the impacts that COVID-19 and the pandemic has had on our lives. Lindsay Thies, our news gathering partner Newsy, reflects on the millions of cases and hundreds of thousands of Americans lost due to the coronavirus.
2020 is coming to an end on an optimistic note as approved COVID vaccines are deployed.
It is such a moment of hope because we can see the light. We can see the end of this pandemic. It's the beginning of the end.
But the virus redefined the past year and left millions scarred.
I will never be the same because of this experience.
What we knew in March and February is a lot different than what we know now.
This time, last year, the virus was just beginning to circulate in Wuhan, China. As we counted down the final hours of 2019, the virus was beginning to spread.
And authorities are still baffled by the fast-spreading coronavirus that has killed at least 4 people and sickened more than 200 in China.
By the end of January, Wuhan would enter a lockdown that would last until April, but not before the virus was spreading overseas. The first case in the U.S. would be detected on January 20th.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China, and we have it under control. It's going to be just fine.
President Donald Trump created the coronavirus task force. He praised Chinese President Xi Jinping for his transparency, and he limited travel, but did not completely stop it from hotspots abroad.
So we are officially quarantined for 14 days in Japan.
Cruise ships became floating petri dishes. Several loaded ships were stranded, sometimes with no place to dock. In February, the virus got a name, COVID-19. It began wreaking havoc in Europe. Hospitals filled. Cases in Italy and Spain surged past China.
Sei in terapia intensiva, lo sai?
March 11th, the WHO finally declared a pandemic, hinting at a grim reality the U.S. would soon face. First, an outbreak at a Seattle nursing home, then New York City.
I hate to say this, but it's true. We are now the epicenter of this crisis right here in the nation's largest city.
Overnight, schools, businesses, and streets in the largest U.S. city emptied as state and local officials began issuing stay-at-home orders. Hospital workers scrambled to secure ventilators and beds. Americans were asked to conserve PPE for frontline healthcare workers. And the USNS Comfort docked in the city on March 30th to provide some relief for hospitals.
We're here by choice, and we have to get to work, and whatever it takes to get through our day, then we do it.
Despite dire warnings, the U.S. had enough ventilators. But throughout March, the gravity of the situation deepened. Several states declared states of emergencies. One by one, sports leagues on the collegiate and professional level suspended or canceled their seasons. On March 24th, the IOC suspended the 2020 Summer Olympics in Japan until 2021.
This is a pandemic. I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic.
Americans were desperate for tests. Lines stretched for miles. Millions lost their jobs. In a 5-week span, more than 26 million people filed for unemployment. That's more than all the jobs added since the Great Recession. Congress passed a $2 trillion stimulus package. By the start of April, roughly 1 million COVID-19 cases had been confirmed globally. By the end of April, the U.S. had confirmed that many cases on its own, and the global death toll climbed above 200,000.
One day I had 4 or 5 patients die. It's a lot of death.
Unlike other countries, the situation has only worsened in the U.S. Peak after peak after peak of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths.
I wish everyone understood how bad this disease was, but they don't.
We had nurses work 14 days straight, whatever they had to do to help take care of all of our patients.
Our new reality, shaped by face masks, disinfectant wipes, hand sanitizer, social distancing, and the worst kind of goodbyes.
When you have a patient taking their last breaths in a bed, and you have a family member yelling through an iPad screen, trying to wake their family member up, that's something you don't forget.
2020 ends with daily deaths topping 9/11. The effort to vaccinate the country is ramping up, but for now, the year ends with the same advice: wear a mask. For Newsy, I'm Lindsay Thies.
It's the kind of surprise that is just what these first responders needed. The big reveal as we hear from firefighters on what it's like to do their job during a global pandemic. That's ahead when the news at 5 continues on WRTV.
0 first month's payment and 0 to its signing.
First responders and healthcare workers have had a really tough year, so this was one very welcome surprise for them today. The Indianapolis Colts crew made a special play to thank essential workers who have been on the local front lines of the pandemic. There were cheerleaders, Colts mascot blue, and lots of giveaways. We asked Indianapolis Fire Department Ladder 29 Captain Michael White what it's been like to continue to serve during a pandemic.
It's just different. It's you have to be aware of your surroundings, mask up, wear your gear, and be prepared for anything like they are every day. They're doing it all across the country. We're doing it here in Indianapolis for you, so we're giving you our best. Be prepared.
This is all leading up to this weekend's Colts Fans Appreciation Game, a chance to thank fans and others who have contributed to the city this year. That game is this Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Thousands of Hoosiers cut out of the first stimulus package are now eligible for the current relief money that the president just signed off on. Tonight at 6, we take a look at who is now included and what this will mean for the economy. There's been a ban in place on elective surgeries at Indiana hospitals have become overwhelmed with COVID activity. Still ahead at 5:30 here, a shift for now. This is the news on WRTV.